want to pull anything?
No,
Okay.
I don't.
Robert, do you want to pull anything from consent? He sits down, ask him for me.
I will. Need to know if he's going to pull anything for Terry. Sure. Are you going to pull anything from consent?
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. Oh, no, he's not.
Okay. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors for February 4th to order. And just one little note of housekeeping. The public hearing will begin it as soon as, or as close to 9:30 as we can. It was published in the newspaper as 9:30. It was published on the agenda as 9. So as close to 9:30, we will start the public hearing. With that, if we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Supervisor Rivas.
Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I can have an acknowledgement of certificate of posting?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We will move to public comment. Is there anyone that wants to address the board on items of interest not appearing on the agenda?
I have to make a copy of one.
Thank you. So we'll do our best. Okay. First, I would like to thank the Board of Supervisors for creating the county relocation codes, which include relocation assistance for tenants unknowingly living in illegal structures. Unfortunately, the ordinance at the same time has a loophole that exempts the landlord from paying any relocation assistance if he just files an eviction, a legal eviction. The problem is the way that it's written. The code does not require that the relocation be paid before giving the eviction notice, and that makes no sense. Under Grusin versus Henry and numerous other cases involving illegal guest houses, the guest house is illegal to begin with, so there can be no legal eviction of an illegal guest house. Relocation assistance has to be paid first, before any eviction notice is given. Your building inspector seems to believe that no relocation assistance is required if the landlord files an eviction case unless it's an emergency or with imminent danger. They should read your codes. The inspector has not been fining or penalizing my landlord, though he continues to have the illegal unit and has not paid any relocation assistance, so I can vacate. I'm stuck without your help. I was duped into renting an illegal guest house where, for the last 6 years, my life has basically been in jeopardy every single day. If I call 911, at best they will respond to the main house, not where I live. I've had 3 open heart surgeries. One of the surgeries damaged my vocal cords, which you can hear, and sometimes I have no voice at all. I rely on 911 even if I can't speak. By residing in this illegal structure, I risk not being found by 911. Is that imminent danger? I think it is. The judges presume that an unlawful detainer is, if an unlawful detainer is filed, it's a legal eviction. Though in this situation, it's only a tactic to delay and avoid paying the relocation. The judge doesn't know that it's illegal, so they let the unlawful detainer take place, and the landlord tries to push out the date of the unlawful detainer as far as he can so he doesn't have to pay anything to anybody. I have brought this truck-sized loophole to the county council's attention, but unless you instruct him to change the law, he won't do it. even though he recognizes that the current wording is defective and misleads those responsible for enforcing the law. I'm almost done. Supervisor Botello and my attorney brought this to the council's attention in November. It's now February and nothing has been done. I am providing the board copies of the relocation codes and news articles from last week, which you all have. And that's it. I just want to say thank you for your continued concern, and particularly Supervisor Botello, who's been aces to me, for your ongoing support of everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Marvin Jones?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Last meeting you had a nice report for the fact-finding report. Thought the presenter made a very good presentation, good job, very professional. Then I was looking at some of the information that was given. You had your reserves, if you recall that. At the end of last fiscal year, what, 6, 7 months ago, it was estimated you had about $7.5 million in reserve. And you expect to have about the same amount at the end of this fiscal year in 4 or 5 months from now. But then one of the other pages in the same handout, if I can turn the page, says you're going to have a $6 million deficit estimate this year. So you're going to start the year with a $7.5 million reserve in the general fund, but somehow you're going to spend $6.1, almost $6.2 million more than you take in, and you're still going to have $7.5 million in reserve. It didn't compute. Now, this is a mixture of general fund and non-general fund shortfalls, but there's something missing there. Is there any sort of explanation on how we start with $7.5 million general fund? In the year was expected to have $7.5 million in general fund, but we spent $6 million more than we had. If these numbers are accurate, the estimate for the end of the year is not correct. If we do only have $1 million, $2 million, whatever in the general fund reserve, next year's going to be worse than this year. Any explanation? Thank you.
Thank you.
Marty Richmond?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Marty Richard from Hollister. I have two subjects this morning. One was covered earlier. Without commenting on any specific case, because I do not know the specifics, if it is true that there is a loophole that allows us people to rent illegally and then not pay their fair share of the relocation, you need to close that loophole. And I think not only that, I would like to see the county start collecting any rents that were collected illegally, that the county go after that money, because these people do it for profit. They don't do it because out of the kindness of their heart. My second issue is a little more upbeat. As I wrote you all and I wrote the City Council, I'd like to address the public through you on how important it is to have a functioning hospital that stays in the black economically. The San Jose Mercury News had an editorial this Sunday recommending that Santa Clara buy the 2 hospitals that are for sale, because it would be devastating to lose those to Santa Clara County, one of which is St. Louis, and there's another hospital run by the same group that's also for sale. And one of the things it said in that article was this would be a costly adventure. Now, when a county like Santa Clara that is essentially rolling in money says it's going to be a costly adventure to get 2 operating hospitals, you can imagine how lucky we are to have a hospital that essentially has been in the black, because the record on the other hospitals is they have just spent and spent and spent. And I can't say irresponsibly, but they haven't taken care of their own balance sheet. So can you imagine if those 2 hospitals were closed and we did not have our own, if people needed emergency care, how far they would have to go in this county? And so we are lucky to have Hazel Hawkins Hospital, and it's a good feeling to know they're here in the event of emergency. I understand they're not perfect. No hospital is perfect. We own it. We can improve it. There are things that need to be done, but overall they do a terrific job. And this county, you should be congratulated for supporting the hospital. The city council should be congratulated. The people of the county should be thankful to themselves for willing to put up the money to support a local hospital. And I thank them for that, and I thank you too.
Is there anyone else that would like to address this board on any item that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll go on to department head announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we do have a few announcements. This morning, we would like to do is continue item number 16 to February 18th. We also had this last week the privilege of having our ERP kickoff meeting. There we had Steve Elam from Wildan Financials, David Gorgeous from Wildan as well, and Steve Denitis from New World. It was basically explaining to our departments the charter and where we're going with the ERP system. So I thought it was a very informative meeting. We went over our vision statement as well as the project scope. And our goal for the county is to bring that new ERP system on in operations the first of the fiscal year, which would be in July. So that's our goal. And we'll be coming back to your board with more reports on how we're doing with that ERP system. We also have coming up next week the board retreat. That will be February the 11th. And I'm recommending, if we can, have it business casual for that day. We'll be at the Sheriff's Building at 9 a.m. And we already have a pretty good agenda put together, so I'm looking forward to that with the board. We have a couple of other department head announcements. We have Jim Riding Sword from our Health and Human Services Department. He's our Health and Human Services Director. He has a department head announcement.
Morning. First of all, I want to introduce to you Elias Barocchio. Elias came to us and is now our migrant housing manager as of last October. He was born and raised in Hollister, graduated in 2009 with a BS in City and Regional Planning from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and from there he came back to live and work in Hollister, worked for the city of Soledad for about a year, and then came and worked with Hollister until he came to the county. We welcome Elias, and he's a great addition to our staff.
Great.
Thank you. Okay. You want to say anything?
Thank you. I just want to say it's a pleasure to work for the county, and I look forward to working with everyone in the public and with you, the County Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think we'll be well served with a Cal Poly graduate. Welcome aboard.
Second, we'd like to announce that February the 14th, Valentine's Day, is San Benito County Heart Day. You can learn how to save lives with hands-only CRP instruction free at the Hollister Fire Department from 1 to 4 p.m. on 110 5th Street. And we thank the Fire Department and Public Health for putting that together for you. And then I got a report this last week on the flu. There have been 147 deaths this season in California because of the flu. This is a particularly hard strain. In fact, our director of nursing is home with this strain this week and says she hasn't been this sick since she was a child. So we want to encourage people to get out and get your flu shots. If you're not sure where to go, you can stop by the Public Health Department and they will direct you. But I do know that Walgreens, Safeway, Nob Hill, the San Benito Health Foundation, and the Hazel Hawkins clinics are providing flu shots for people. I got mine last week. It was painless, and I hope that I'm protected for the season. We want people to remain healthy in San Benito County. Thank you very much.
I just have one question.
Yes, sir.
How long does a flu shot last for a person? If, say, you went in and got it in November, does it last a year? Does it last 2 years? Or?
Well, all I know is I get them once a year. And that was based upon the advice of the public health officer in Mariposa County when I was there, who said, you're at that point in life where you need to do this once a year. The flu is particularly harsh on young people and older people. So when it's announced that flu shots are available, we would recommend that you go as soon as possible and get your flu shot.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, we also have another department head announcement. This is going to be from our newly appointed chief, Mike O'Connor. And he will be talking to us a little bit about the grant that we received, or the city received, as well as a few other things, so feel free.
Well, if you haven't heard, we did receive the FEMA grant for additional staffing throughout the county. The staffing will be 12 additional firefighters is what the grant will pay for. Hopefully, we have 90 days to get them on. I have the job flyer. It should be going out today for the reserves to apply. We have about 26 applicants that probably will apply for that. Could be a few more, depending on who makes the decision. So hopefully by the end of February, we'll have testing started. They have to be on by April the 4th. So it's pretty quick. So I'll be bringing those to you. Also, we have a swearing in that I'm inviting you to. It's on February the 10th, next Monday, at Hollister Fire Station 1. We'll be swearing in additional 10 reserves that night. We did 37 last week, and I apologize. I guess some of you did not get the invitation, and I apologize for that.
Mike, what time is that?
It's at 6 o'clock, 1800 hours.
At Station 1.
At Station 1, 110 Fifth Street, up in the training room. And that's pretty much it. Again, he announced the Heart Day coming up on the 14th, and that will be at Hollister Fire Station 1. Our firefighters and EMS personnel will be there to show people how to do CPR. Okay, any questions?
Just congratulations, Mr. Chair. I'd like to congratulate
Thank you.
on your position and also for acquiring this very much-needed grant for the county.
And just for your info, we still have about 1.6 million still outstanding in grants that I've applied for equipment and other stuff. So I'm going to continue going for the grants as long as you guys keep on pushing me to.
We will.
Okay?
Supervisor Vitello?
Yes, you're doing a fine job. Everything I've heard in my district has been positive with the consolidation of the the county and the two cities working together, and I'm pretty sure that we received this grant because of the joint efforts that we have.
It was definitely a major point in the decision making back at FEMA.
Yeah, and so we're far better off than what we were probably a year ago, but we still have a lot more work to do. We want to get the other Station 3 up and running and continue the path.
Yeah. This, just for your info, this will bring our department, after the grant, all the personnel is hired, will bring it up to approximately 36 paid personnel and still approximately 65 reserves at
Can I
that
ask a
point.
question, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Chief, did the consolidation of the two, fires, county and city, did that play any part in getting this grant, or did it make any difference than knowing that we're working together as a community?
I hope so. I wrote it about 6 or 8 times in the report that I gave to FEMA that we consolidated, that this was a multi-government consolidation of fire services throughout the county. So yeah, I was told that was a big point in the FEMA decision, that they want to see departments consolidating, working together, government agencies working together. That's what they're looking for, as well as a combination department. If we were strictly paid, it doesn't have as many points. Being a combination department, it helps in the 1,400 square miles too that we try to protect. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Supervisor De La Cruz?
Chief,
yes,
congratulations and good job.
thank you.
In reference to the grant money, these individuals who are being hired on, once the grant money runs, they will, what's going to happen to their employment status once the grant money is done?
The grant is for 2 years, and it pays for their salaries and benefits. At the end of 2 years, we'll reapply, or before the end of 2 years, we'll reapply. Most of the time, if you reapply, they'll give you an extension of additional 2 years. So they're good for about 4 years total. And
Let's
at that
assume
point, we
let's
can
assume
hire.
it doesn't happen. Let's just assume
Right.
it doesn't happen.
Then, if we have vacancies, they move up into those vacancies. If we don't, then yes, we let them go.
You let it go.
And we will try to get them hired by other departments,
And it won't be part of that package price that you'll be
No,
renegotiating
they're
with
let go.
county and Aromas. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Chief, I just want to also congratulate you on your
Thank you,
on your
Jerry.
new position, and also congratulate you on the first swearing in. And I was one of those that was not aware about, and I apologize for not being there. Can you also give us an update on Station 3 and 4?
Station 3, we pretty much nailed it down to the airport property. We're working right now with an architect and engineer to get some plans drawn up, and we're going to bring those back to the fire committee on Thursday, kind of give an overview of what we're looking at, and then we're going to go out and see what costs. And we're looking at some creative ways of getting the costs down by using maybe the college construction class that's out of Gavilan to assist us in some of the construction work. So, but it'll come to the fire committee, and then as the fire committee works together, we'll bring it to the main board when we get decisions. But it looks like the airport is going to be the location, if there's no disagreement on your guys' part. So, okay?
And Station 4 in San Juan?
Station 4 is, we got the flooring to put in the training room there, and it should be finished hopefully by the middle to end of this month. It should be finished.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you
Okay?
very much.
And then we'll have open house on those facilities. Okay?
Thank you.
One more item I wanted to bring to the attention of the board as well as to the public was there was a comment earlier about the $6 million and $7.5 million in reserves. The $6 million that was pointed out was basically a budget shortfall that we needed to allocate to balance the budget for fiscal year 13-14, and the $7.5 million is what we have in reserves. So that reserves, we'll have to probably use some of that reserves the following year if we're not diligent at fixing our financial problems, which we have been. So just to answer that question, that money, the $7.5 million, is what we've been dwindling down year after year. We had it quite a bit more in that report in previous years. So that's all I wanted to mention.
Thank you.
That's all the department head announcements that we have.
Thank you. We'll move on to board announcements. Supervisor Patel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I do have a few announcements. I attended a RCRC meeting a couple weeks ago, January 22nd, and at that meeting, Senator Cannella got our award, the RCRC award for Legislator of the Year, Yeah, he has done an outstanding job representing San Diego County and some our issues that we face daily as a county. There was quite a discussion during member county concerns and issues. RCRC is still very active in trying to restore subvention funding for the Williamson Act. That battle continues. We're a little bit more optimistic now that the state's budget is looking a little bit more healthier, and they're putting away revenue for a rainy day account. But that has not trickled down to the Williamson subvention funding for rural counties. And like us, we're very dependent on that funding that we haven't received for a number of years, and other counties have been affected the same way as we have. And the discussion ranged from Colusa County thinking possibly canceling their contracts as, you know, a punitive act. You know, if the state is not going to contribute being a partner in the effort, then, you know, maybe the whole program ought to go by the wayside. I believe our position has always been to honor our contracts, although our policy is not to accept any further new applications. And a number of other counties have taken that same stance. So the work continues on this issue. And I'll keep the board abreast as far as any progress from RCRC. We had a quite a rundown on the government, the state budget. We also had Assembly Speaker Perez at our meeting that also gave us his version of how well the state is doing at this point in time. The state's doing great. RCRC counties made a point that we still feel a deep recession. And the speaker had stated that he'll try to look into areas that could help rural counties. One of the things I want to alert our staff, CEO Espinoza, is that, you know, as we're moving forward with our jail construction project, our expansion project, let's make sure that, you know, the state funding is still there. There's other counties that have been put on hold, and I hate to get too far on our design expenses and architectural expenses and not get reimbursed. So let's monitor that very, very closely as we move forward with that project. As I mentioned to Mr. Chairman, a new issue that we as a county should start working on, RCRC is working on a draft proposed medical marijuana policies and principles. And as we have seen nationwide, it's a big issue. Some states are legalizing medical, not only medical marijuana, but recreational use. And I think now is the time for us to be a little bit more proactive on the issue, whether you're supportive of the legalization or not. I think it's prudent that we start evaluating land use policies. Other counties have started this throughout the state. And, you know, as far as how we're going to manage the possibility of the legalization of marijuana. And I would suggest to you, Mr. Chairman, possibly directing staff to move forward either through the Planning Commission to start evaluating what other counties are doing, or setting up a subcommittee at your discretion, sir. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Supervisor Barris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 3 announcements. YMCA is kicking off their annual campaign, so open up your wallets. We'll be contacting you for contributions. I traveled to Marina, to the Leadership Council that deals with homelessness. We have a regional council that includes Monterey County and San Benito County. Homelessness is a growing, ongoing population, and I met myself and staff members with our Health and Human Services Director, Mr. Riding Sword, and it was really good to know that San Benito County is moving forward with a plan to deal with this issue, not only in the way of grants, but community involvement in solving the problem that we certainly are facing. The last thing is that I was invited to be a part of the library forum. There's a strong community interest in preserving our library, in growing our library, and making sure that we offer this service to the community at large. So that was very, very thought-provoking, and hopefully there will be some ideas that will come from that, including, and through the intergovernmental, the mayor and I have been charged with meeting with Health and Human Services, as we did for the homelessness, but also with the high school and the school districts in regards to the library. So we have met with the high school already, and we plan to meet with the Hollister School District so that we can plan together. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Rivas? No announcements. Supervisor De La Cruz?
None, Mr. Chair.
First, I want to congratulate Mayor Velasquez on securing a new hotel for the community. He announced through his Facebook page that they have the Fairfield Inn by Marriott committing to come to town, and that's going to be a great addition for the community and for our efforts in promoting tourism. I attended the rollout meeting of the ERP, and I'd just like to thank the CAO and also Joe Paul for all the work they have done getting us to this point of updating our software system that'll be dealing with our budget and other issues. And I want to thank the staff and especially the department heads for their support in facilitating this. I know it's going to be a lot of work. It'll probably be a couple-year project, but I just want to thank them for working hard at bringing this about. And I also would like to congratulate San Benito County Chamber of Commerce on a great awards dinner the other night. And I want to acknowledge Bob Tiffany and Brenda Weatherly as the Men and Women of the Year, and would also like to thank all the businesses that also won this year. They have done much for our community through employment and just helping the nonprofits in this community. And with that, if we can do consent really quickly, does any board member want to pull any item from the consent? Okay. Is there any request from the public to pull any item from the consent agenda? Okay. With that, I would entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. We will now move on to the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr.
Yep.
Chair. Yeah, this is item number 12. This is going to be presented from our Planning Interim Director, Byron Turner. And we're going to be holding a public hearing considering the Planning Commission's recommendations set forth in the Planning Commission Resolution 2014-01 and requesting an adoption resolution certifying the environmental impact report, as well as requesting from your board the adoption of an ordinance amending the San Benito County Code to create new overlay zoning district. So again, we have Byron Turner here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is for the San Benito County Resource Recovery Park project. The proposed project is a twofold project. One is to create a resource recovery park zone, and the second is to apply that Resource Recovery Park designation to a 30-acre site located near the landfill, across the road from the landfill on John Smith Road. This process began in 2007 by direction of the Board of Supervisors, and we've been working on this for a good 6-7 years now to bring it to this culmination to the board here. Again, there's two actions. One is the creation of an overlay zone, so I'll discuss the overlay zone first. The overlay zone, or a combining zone, is applied over previously established zoning districts, establishing stricter standards in addition to the base zoning district. So an example in San Bernardino County now of combining zones are mineral resource areas, floodplains, scenic highways, where there's a base zone, but then there's additional restrictions on top of that base zone based on the unique features of that site. The second item is then the proposed RRP, and this is also related to the zone. The RRP is to provide specialized areas where diverted material resources from local and regional waste streams are directed to a controlled facility or facilities where recycling, reuse, manufacturing, energy production, and businesses in these fields can locate, and it provides standards and guidelines for such uses. Setbacks, landscaping, limits on uses, for instance, composting is prohibited at the site, even though it's something that can be done in ag land, are all examples of some of the restrictions in the standards and guidelines for the site. The purpose of the Resource Recovery Park, then, is economic development through materials management, facilitating job creation in the green economy. It's waste diversion, hence its location at the landfill, and reuse at a centralized location, thereby reducing traffic and greenhouse gas emissions, renewable energy creation and production, and to provide a modern and convenient household hazardous waste and electronics recycling facility. I'm going to talk about the CEQA process for a minute and how it works with this overall project. The EIR for this project does not analyze every individual project that could be placed at that site. A program EIR was prepared on a series of actions for one large project. This provides the framework or a tiered project-level environmental document for within the overall program. Then a project environmental document is prepared for a specific project, which we do not have at this time. While we have met with many individuals who wish to locate in this location, we do not have applications in yet because there's no place for them to apply to. So the development process first is the RRP zoning and ordinance is adopted. The RRP program EIR is certified. Then for future projects, they will have to make an application. Staff will have to determine consistency with the RRP zoning and the site. CEQA analysis of that project, of that development, will have to be undertaken. There will be public comments, as the CEQA process is all about public comment, and then it will go to Planning Commission if necessary. If it rises to that level, most of them will be Planning Commission level projects. Again, this is conceptual. There are no specific projects currently proposed or before this board today. So as I said, this began in 2007. Originally, the process was to zone the site to M2 heavy industrial. This is an example of the CEQA process in action. An original draft EIR was made available for the public in 2010. The final EIR was not certified by the Planning Commission or the board. As a result of the public comment, county elected to revise the project description and prepare a revised EIR. So that public comment was, industrial is not a use that we want to see in this location. So staff went back to the drawing board and created this resource recovery zone, which then would not open up everything that was that could be permitted in the heavy industrial. So we created the RRP zone. The revised EIR was made available to the public in September of 2013. There was a public comment period. As a result of public comments, the final EIR was available in December of 2013. The Planning Commission heard it on December 18th and on January 15th and recommended approval. And then today we're at the Board of Supervisors. I want to note that at the Planning Commission, 2 additional conditions of approval were added. One required Planning Commission review of the overall site landscaping plan, and the other required an annual review of everything that goes on the site at the Planning Commission. So before I give the staff recommendation, I want to take a moment to talk to you also about the process now for businesses who want to locate in San Bernardino County. At the Planning Department, we frequently meet with businesses who want to locate here. Historically, if a business wanted to, and one of the ones we get is they want to recycle ag plastic that's destined for the landfill. We'd let them know that this is an industrial use. You need to find industrial zone. Well, I don't know if you have looked at a map of the county, there are very few industrial zones, something that we've had this discussion in the context of general plan about creating more areas for potential industrial zoning. So due to a lack of existing industrial zones in the county, we tell that applicant they're going to have to do a general plan amendment. They're going to have to rezone property. They're going to have to do an EIR, and until recently, they're going to have to do an M-District review. Now that M-District review is no longer part of the process, and it's been streamlined, but that's still quite an undertaking for a small business looking to get started. After hearing all this, you'll notice we don't have these businesses in San Bernardino County. They've gone to other locations. This action today, again, it's still, any business that's looking to come here will still go through a complete, full review, CEQA review, and public hearing process, but it gives a location for them to potentially locate in the county where that didn't exist before. At most, all those uses will require a use permit, but a use permit is still much less of a undertaking for a small business. So with that, I'll give the staff recommendation, and that is that you hold a public hearing, that you consider the Planning Commission's recommendations set forth in Planning Commission Resolution 2014-01, that you adopt the resolution certifying the environmental impact report, adopting the required CEQA findings and other findings required by the planning and zoning law and county code provision, and adopting the recommended mitigation measures, mitigation monitoring and reporting program, and statement of overriding considerations. And number 4, adopt the ordinance amending the San Bernardino County Code to create a new overlay zoning district, resource recovery park district, and to rezone approximately 30 acres of property located on John Smith Road to the newly created resource recovery park overlay zoning designation, approving zone change 10-171 with the recommended conditions of approval. I'm here for any questions. Mandy is here from Integrated Waste if you have any questions about this uses that might locate there or also related to the landfill. Steve Wittry is here to if there's any questions about John Smith Road and the process that we're going through with repairing the road. Also, Steve Peterson is here if you have any specific CEQA questions and how the CEQA process works.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions at this time of the board?
Just a comment, Mr. Chair, that just to let the public know that I did attend a community meeting along with you at the Tres Pinos Catholic Church in regards to this item. It was called that it was reported that it was a heated meeting, and I can assure you that there was no heat coming from either Supervisor Munger or myself. We were very respectful of the community members, and we heard them out and heard their concerns. There were 10 specifically that I wrote down. I sent them over to Mandy. Mandy was kind enough to send them back to me with some answers, and so I will be presenting those later in the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, before I open up the public hearing, two things. I want to go over some rules, and actually I went over these rules the other night with everyone that attended the forum. And also, because of time constraint, if this public hearing runs long, we will have to stop it at 11 o'clock. We have a closed session item that is time sensitive, and then we'll reopen the public hearing. If everyone has not had a chance to address the board, we will reopen the public hearing in the afternoon. So as we get closer to 11 o'clock, we'll vet that out. So with that, I'd like to go over some ground rules. I'm allowing everyone to have 3 minutes, when the timer goes off that the clerk of the board keeps, if you're not done, I will ask you to summarize, and we'll only give you a short while to summarize. Address the issues of the RRP or John Smith Road, not the landfill. Address the members of the Board of Supervisors, not the people in the audience. I will not allow borrowing minutes from someone else. There will be no second trips to the microphone unless requested by a member of the Board of Supervisors. I will not allow any shouting, talking, or asking questions from the gallery. No clapping, no cheering, and no disrespecting any member of the Board of Supervisors, staff, or another member of the audience. I am not going to allow this meeting to become unruly, and I will do anything I deem necessary to assure that. Thank you. With that, I will open up the public hearing. First speaker.
Lisa Tobias. Thanks. I wanted to go first. Anyway, good morning, Board. My name is Lisa Tobias. I reside at 6750 Santa Ana Valley Road in Santa Ana Valley. First, let me say I truly appreciate the opportunity to be here and to be part of this process. All of us have learned a great deal in the last 5-7 years, whatever it was he said, about how this process works and about resource recovery. Then the board should truly appreciate having an engaged and active citizenry that cares so deeply about their community. At this time, I'd like to urge this board to vote no on the rezoning of this parcel. I travel John Smith Road frequently, as it is the main artery that I have to travel into Hollister and beyond. I see this site every day, and every day as I go by, there are things that I wonder about it. The negatives for this site that you will hear about this property are in regards to unsafe and poorly maintained roads, geographic location far from transportation corridors, lack of uncontaminated water, unfavorable and unfriendly topography of the site, and so on. Those things are all true. These are all from the EIR and the CEQA documents. And our conclusion is this. This is the wrong location for a resource recovery park. The CEQA document provides the answer to why this site is being proposed as the sole site for this. And it comes down to this. It is the one site that the county owns. Changing the zoning is not going to overcome this site's deficits. Supervisor Rivas the other night asked us how this personally affects us. I've thought a lot about that since then, and for me, it's hard for me to accept that government can be treated differently or above the way its citizens are treated. No private individual here can come to the board and propose that they want to change the zoning on their property without a specific project in mind. And that is yet what you've been asked to do today. It is pointed out that the RRP concept was approved by a prior board and sent the staff to make it happen. The documents you will be asked to vote on today are more concise and creative than those proposed by your staff, and that's because of the concerns of these citizens, and you're very lucky to have them. There's been enough time, energy, and money spent so far to determine that this is a severely flawed proposal. This property was acquired for the county for the purpose of landfill expansion. You should keep it that way. Marty Richmond.
Marty Richard from Hollister. I just want to remind the board that this is not the first time I've spoken on this issue. I've spoken on it several times before it got popular. So I'm not here to make friends or influence people. I neither support nor oppose it, and the reason is the same reason I've given you the last several times. I would like to support or oppose it, and I will take an honest position. I don't have any, I don't live in the area. It won't have any effect on me. I could just turn around, walk away, and let it go on. And I don't think you've done a decent job of explaining what the benefits are. In fact, I think you've done a lousy job. There must be a reason. I do not think the Board of Supervisors to be so unthinking as to take an enormous amount of public money and put it into a project like this unless you have some goal, some idea of what the return's going to be. I'm not willing to accept answers like, we don't do returns, we don't do business plans, we don't do that. These are public funds. You must have some idea what benefits are. If it's 50-50 environmental and revenue, then why don't you tell the public it's 50-50 and tell them what they'll get for their revenue? Tell them how much more policing they'll get, how much more health care they'll get, or whatever it is. My concern is that no matter how many times you've explained it to me, I always feel there's something I don't know about it because I can't seem to get a straight answer on what you expect to happen there. And you must expect something. You don't invest this kind of money for no reason. Perhaps there's risk involved. I'm not stupid. I believe that you can take some risk. But you must have some concept of what you think that risk is. And you have to say, I believe that you owe the public an explanation because of the funding involved here, to say, we believe that in 5 years we're going to do this or that. Now, I understand there's a political risk there. Somebody will stand up 5 years from now and say, you said we're going to get here or we're going to get there, and we haven't made it. But, you know, we elected you because we believed you were not cowards. You would not be willing to state what you think is going to happen. So I believe it's really important that you explain to the public what benefit you expect to get in what proportion. If it's 100% environmental, then it's 100% environmental. If it's 50, then it's 50. But there's got to be a reason, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address this board? Paul, if you can fill out one of the yellow, oh, thank you.
It's done on recycled paper.
Good morning. I'm Paul Levy, and I live within a short enough distance to be within smell distance of the proposed resource recovery park. And first, right up front, I want to make sure everybody understands, I don't want to see this development there. I don't think it's a great place for it. I think it's the wrong place. And yet it astounds me that you continue to approve lots of potential residential activity in that neighborhood. So there's going to be a conflict down the road between whatever goes on at John Smith and all the homes and the residences that are being built in the neighborhood. I just hate to think that 10 or 15 years down the road, when some little 10-year-old kid gets run over by a truck, that we're going to think back on this day. The second thing is, in the discussions here, I want to make two requests, I guess. In the discussions here, I understand that composting has been taken off the table. That's great. I mean, if this goes forward, I certainly want composting removed. But I'm beginning to think this is a little bit like Bill Clinton, you know, didn't have sex with that woman. One of the very first proposed tenets of this place is something, I can't even pronounce it, anaerobic digesters, which everybody tells me is fertilizer. Well, I think we need to broaden the term composting to include anything that includes something that would create an offensive odor to the neighborhood. My whole issue with this project is the potential impact on my quality of life. Smell is definitely one of those things. So I would like the Planning Commission's recommendations there for restrictions, or wherever it belongs appropriately, that you expand the definition. And I haven't seen it in print anywhere about composting, but you expand the definition to include anything, anaerobic, whatever it is, or anything else that might create an offensive smell to the neighborhood and affect our quality of life. The second quick point, and this is not really related to this rezoning thing, is that there seems to be a lot of ignorance about the impact on Best Road. It's all focused on John Smith. There's no funds available. The EIR sort of ignores it, says it's not an impact. Well, it is an impact. If you drive down Best Road, you'll see the impact. And my fear is that this will continue to get worse and worse and worse. So I would ask that at some point, somewhere, somehow, you put up signs at both ends of Best Road that prohibit landfill traffic on that highway and impose the appropriate fines to prevent it. Thank you.
Okay. If people want to address this board, if you have your cards filled out, why don't you bring them up now so we can kind of.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Hayden. Thank you.
Denise, can you do a quick count of how many you just received? Okay.
Half an hour or so, yeah.
Give or take, yeah.
Mary Hubble.
Okay, you ready?
Noel Provost?
Thank you for having me today. Our main goal is the health, welfare, and safety of the residents of San Benito County. I'm asking you, as members of San Benito County Board of Supervisors, to vote no on changing the zoning at the proposed RRP on John Smith Road from agricultural to RRP for these reasons and concerns. Number one, why are you changing agricultural land to RRP zone land when we are already recycling now at the landfill without this zoning designation? This seems to be leapfrog zoning in agricultural land. Are we making wise decisions for the future planning of our county? Do we want industrial businesses in the middle of ag land? Typically, when this leapfrog zoning takes place, the land between the zone and the populated area is filled in with residential development. Is this the way we should plan for the future? Number two, we are concerned as to why, out of all the sites considered, this was the only one that was set up to fit into the criteria established, and that was distance from the landfill to proposed RRP and the fact that the county owned it. Is it financially feasible to continue with plans for this site? It is far from major transportation, such as state-maintained roads and rail. It has no developed water, sewer, or telephone. Cell phone service is unavailable. Water is needed for drinking, landscaping, sanitation, and most of all, fire protection in this dry grassland area. We were told by Mandy Rose that water harnessed from the runoff of the existing landfill could be used at this site. However, at this time, they are still using potable Sunny Slope County water for dust mitigation, and there is no drinking water. Can a septic system be installed next to a seasonal creek? Why was three-phase electrical run to the site before the project was approved? Trucking garbage all the way across our roads, Highway 25, Shore, Fairview, Union, Airline, Best, and John Smith, and more, will damage those roads and cost the county in tax dollars for upkeep. Recycling in an existing industrial zone closer to major state-maintained highways and train tracks would make more sense. Then truck what little garbage is left after recycling to the John Smith landfill. Choosing a site that is already zoned properly and has all the infrastructure would seem to make more sense. This property was purchased in 1995 for $500,000 to move the existing landfill once full. Keep this property for its original purpose. Thank you.
Tammy Jackson, 3503 John Smith Road. I'm actually the closest neighbor to the proposed RRP. Road safety and quality is a big concern. When the road is improved, as we know that it's already been in the process and they're now taking bids for. What's going to be our guarantee that the roads will be upkept from this point on? Are they going to create a fund just for future replacement and repair? Is there any connection, either direct or indirect, between the planned RRP and the agreement to recover the landfill closing fees? Will the RRP loads count towards the tonnage necessary to recover the closing fee or to shift closing fee responsibility? The people in South County didn't want the highway name change and you listened. The people in Aromas didn't want the oil deal and you listened. And the people in Tres Pinos didn't want the hotel and you listened. We urge you today to please listen to your constituents and the residents of San Benito County. In the over 4 years that we've been here, not one person has ever stood up and been in favor of this project. You have said that this is a case of not in my backyard, and Marty mentioned that this wouldn't affect him, but that's not true. Fox Hill is 0.6 miles from the proposed site with 80 residents. Heatherwood is 1.1 miles with 105 residents. Harborn Way is 1.1 miles with 60 residents. Stonegate is 1.3 miles with 215 residents. Ridgemark, 1.4 miles, 3,100 residents. Cielo Vista, 2 miles with 265 residents, and Tres Pinos, 2.1 miles with 500 residents. That doesn't take into consideration Holiday Estates, Upper Sunny Slope area, Sunny Slope, that are all within 2.5 miles of the proposed site, and the center of Hollister is only 4.7 miles away. There has already been a development approved at Santana Ranch. East of Fairview and west of Fairview projects are in the making. You already have a Gavilan College extension that's been proposed and will only add to the congestion of our county. At one point, we all drive on these roads, as mentioned by Mr. Provost, especially Highway 25 in Fairview. Almost all of us use that road on a daily basis. It is your responsibility as elected officials to plan for the future of San Benito County. We want an open, honest government with straightforward answers and a common sense approach. After your terms are completed, will your planning be the wisest choice for our future? It is not acceptable that you tell us that you do not know the cost or return on your investment when you have the honor of making such an important decision. I would urge you to vote no today. And I've asked the question, is it possible for you to create this resource recovery park zoning, but not to attach it to any piece of property? So as Byron mentioned, if you streamline the process, if a tenant comes in and wants to propose to go into this, that they have to apply for their conditional use permits, they have to apply for their grading permits, they have to apply for their tenant improvements, they can be the ones that apply for the zone change. Thank you.
I also want to thank you for letting me come here today. And Margie and Jerry, I want to apologize. I believe I was one of the heated ones at the meeting the other night. And I think it's because we care so much. And thank you for letting me vent. And today I will just read so I won't be heated. We were told that your mission statement was to build it and they will come. However, this doesn't seem to be the case. Supervisor De La Cruz told us that he has spoken with some small recycling businesses and they were told that they would not be able to relocate to this site because it would be too expensive for them. We were told that it would probably be one corporation or business that would occupy this site due to the high cost of the infrastructure improvements. Is this the definition of a resource recovery park? Not really. The definition is the co-location of reuse, recycling, compost processing, manufacturing, and retail business in a central facility. After speaking with Councilman Victor Gomez, we were surprised to learn that the city has never been contacted to start a joint venture on the county in the garbage collection or recycling. The majority of the 25% of the garbage going to the current landfill is from the city. There are numerous vacant sites within the city limits that are already zoned properly and all have the necessary infrastructure. There would be no infrastructure expense to any potential vendors and they could open immediately once permits were obtained. We are concerned about the water pollution. The water does run towards the greater Hollister area as mentioned in the EIR. As history has proven, we need to be proactive instead of reactive. We only have one source of water. Let's protect it. Noise and air pollution and all of the species mentioned in the EIR that could be harmed should also be considered. The EIR mentioned significant impact to our environment. It has been brought to our attention that there is a high-pressure gas line running across John Smith Road. Has PG&E been notified of the additional heavy traffic trips across this line, and is that going to cause a dangerous situation? The topography of the land is not conducive to this project. There is about a 90-foot elevation difference within the project. There's a seasonal creek running through the property, which we mentioned may affect the septic system as well as the downstream water quality. What's this going to do to the land values and our property taxes? The county will be collecting less. How much have you spent to date? How much have you been obligated to spend? How much more will it take to open the facility? How do you intend to recover the public money that you have invested so far and will invest in the future? Government does have to pay for itself. There's been no return on investment figures given and no current financial feasibility report done. How will you limit the traffic? Will there be a limit to use permits? These businesses are not likely to generate high sales tax, perhaps no sales tax at all. So because of all these reasons, I also urge you to vote no. Thank you.
My biggest concern, there's two issues that I want to bring up. No, I've already brought up the road. The part of the road that is just atrocious supposedly is not one that's going to be resurfaced in the current thing. Second of all, my biggest concern is, are we going to become another Hinckley, California? If any of you saw the movie Erin Brockovich or read my email, you'll know what I'm talking about. Hinckley, California had a high carcinogen rate amongst its residents and was brought about by Erin Brockovich, which was a true movie. I brought this along so you can see. This is what's happening since the drought. These are the drains that are in my house, okay, and I'll give this to you as an example. This is happening in 2 weeks. When we get the runoff from this dump that goes into our aquifer, how many more people in our area, which no one's brought up yet, how many have died of cancer? I'm bringing this up because of the memory of my 2 neighbors across the street who both died of cancer. Linda Harden, who was at 700, Heatherwood died just last year, and her husband died of pancreatic cancer 2 years prior to that. Both are dead, along with animals that lived in the house. And this is what's coming up. Also, I sent you a picture of the San Benito recycling center that's down by the railroad tracks and by Hollister Super. In that, you see the trash. I have a picture of it, and if you read your email, you'll see. Is that what it's going to look like? Ms. Tobias mentioned, you know, the unsightly because of the angle of the new RRP. This is what we're going to be looking at with trash floating, water when it rains. I'd have pictures of the puddles here that drain into the system. Is that what's going to happen? So then more of us are going to have problems like this with carcinogens in our water. How many more are going to die in the area? My other point that I wanted to bring up, after the meeting the other night when Mr. De La Cruz was there, I asked him, since he works for a recycling firm, would he put his tire because of the distance for transportation when it comes down to economics? And he said, probably not. So why are we opening this up so more people go down John Smith? That just doesn't seem right. And like I said, when I see the repairs that have been done to Best Road, and I see the repairs that have done to John Smith, where it's not even leveled with a steamroller, but they just left bumps in the road that all of us are getting our cars wrecked, that disturbs me. So please vote no.
Shorty Silva?
I'm Shorty Silva. I live on John Smith Road. You've heard all our concerns a million times. One of my main concerns is this is the wrong location. It's been predetermined by the parameters set up to figure out which parcels to consider, that this was already a pre-done deal before we started. Other parcels that were considered were not owned by the county. And so it was stated that it was not an economically viable situation because the county did not own them, they could not purchase them. I'm sure no one looked into costs or anything of purchasing the property. There's a piece of property right now on San Felipe Road between McCloskey and Fallon Road, 23 acres, listed for $1.2 million, been listed for quite a while, can be bought probably for $1 million according to a local realtor I just talked to. I just think that somehow the location was predetermined, and I think the county is opening themselves up to, I don't want to say litigation, but anyhow, I don't think all the proper sites were considered. The other concern I have, Assembly Bill 939 or something says you have to recycle 50% of your waste. If we're importing 75% of our waste, the majority of which has already been recycled, how are we ever going to meet our 50%? You'd have to recycle 200–300% of what we bring in. So I think there's a lot of things that have not been considered. I know a lot of you supervisors have said they have not read all of the EIR. You're trying to adopt a resolution here today which states that you've reviewed, you've studied, you've done this, and you've done that. And my question is, have you really? You're affecting the lives of a hell of a lot of people out in that area and all over the county. And I think this considers a lot more, I mean, should be considered a lot more before done. So I'm asking you, please vote no.
Good morning. I'm Susan Modick, Stonegate. First of all, thank you to the supervisors for taking part in the Tres Pinos discussions last week. The town of Hollister is expanding all along Fairview Road, and this includes that John Smith Road area. It's no longer way out in the country. Fairview in that area is becoming a major artery which has to accommodate many cars because of these projects that are already in the works. There seems to be multiple water quality issues in the area already that are affecting those neighboring properties. The groundwater along John Smith Road naturally flows from the landfill in the direction of Heatherwood Estates, their private well, and the Hollister city boundaries. The county has approved a major residential project nearby on Fairview Road, which will build out towards the landfill and the explosive site. The Guerrera property on John Smith Road has an approved tentative map, I understand, for a housing project, and which is not being actively pursued at the moment, I believe. But the property is in close proximity to the Lima property, whose owners experienced some aborted calves a number of years ago, and that problem was traced to contamination in the wells. So we know there are multiple water quality issues in the area, and they do affect the neighborhood. I think it's a matter of record that other communities who have faced similar situations have lost lawsuits because of landfill concerns related to cancer and illness claims. So the question is, does it make any more sense to add water quality and liability risk? Another issue we have here is the traffic. Santana Ranch has been approved and is moving forward with over 1,000 houses going in. We know it's going to have a major impact on our roads, among everything else. And there is discussion of the Gavilan campus and housing project on Fairview and Highway 25. There are over 400 vehicles per day, we're told, for this proposed resource recovery project, which would have a substantial impact on the traffic. It would not only affect John Smith Road, but Fairview and all the main routes crossing the county from Highway 101. The damage to the roads and effect on air quality for all county residents would be substantial. Normally, the rainwater in that area would pour along the muddy hillsides of the landfill onto John Smith Road. When you take all this into an account, that was it, huh? Thank you.
It appears to be Peggy
Churchill.
Churchill, okay.
Hi, Peggy Churchill. I live in Ridgemark, California, and thank you for letting us speak today. I, first of all, want to open up with saying that I believe Hollister can aspire to be a Carmel Valley. And I feel that bringing this into our community will make us an area of non-desirable for people to want to live here. And we talk about tax dollars coming into our community when this is the very thing that would cause people to not want to move here. I love the roads out there. I ride on them. I mean, they definitely need to be worked on, but I'm a cyclist, so I speak for a lot of people that do cycle. And this whole week I've rode my bike at different times and took a calculation of how many people actually do use that road as cyclists. I want to thank the people that do live out there and allow me to ride those roads, because it is a small road. And being on that road, I can't imagine trucks on that. It's a single lane road, and all I imagine when I'm riding that road yesterday morning, I see little cross with roses and little areas where people were hit or killed. There's no room on that bend for a bike and a car, and I am not going to stop cycling, but that's what you're telling me that I have to do. And it's sad, because it is a beautiful community. Hollister can be a beautiful community if we work together, and I urge you to vote no on this. I'm going to leave you guys with one question. I'd like to know why streamline process for small businesses when small businesses has already said they can't afford it regardless. So I'll leave you with that question. Thank you.
Frank Guerra.
Good morning, Frank Guerra, 45 Sunrise Drive. I wrote a letter to everybody too, and I mentioned that I cycle as well. Narrow road, wide load, makes it difficult to for all those vehicles to pass, and they're right. It was the stated goal that this was to reduce traffic, and yet in the EIR it was mentioned that over 400 additional trips a day would be added if this was to go through. I understand convert an asset into cash. The city did that with the Walmart remnant that came from the, Walgreens remnant that came from the bypass. It's a terrific concept. I understand why you'd want to do it. But my biggest concern is we have a business here that it's here because we're here. We've been here forever. We have to transport almost everything in and back out of this area. Transportation rates are high, and added to that, and they increase every year, and added to that 30 to 40% fuel surcharge. It makes no sense to have our business here. I mean, nobody would bring a business into this area to do that unless there was some other reason. And as I said, I'm concerned of what kind of a business would take on that additional expense to probably, since it's mentioned local and regional waste streams. I don't know how big a region we're considering here, but there's some really large municipal areas nearby that might be funneling their recyclables into this area only to have them go out again. And so my concern is that they may be not very desirable businesses that wouldn't be able to locate areas that are closer to their supply, excuse me, in their transportation lanes, railheads, ports, and major freeways. So I'm concerned of what we're inviting into our community if we pass this through. So I appreciate your time.
Sally Silva.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Sally Silva on John Smith Road. This is the resolution that you will be signing today if you vote yes. And on page 295, it says that if you vote yes, you will achieve the environmental objectives that you put forth in a way that is economically viable and socially responsible. Will that be the case if you vote yes? It also says in this that if you are signing it and voting yes, the benefits of this project set forth outweigh the significant adverse environmental effects that are not mitigated to less than significant levels. Many points jumped out at me when I read this resolution, but I can only touch on a couple. On page 227, it states that truck washing areas, conference rooms, kitchens, break rooms, showers, and bathrooms will be considered at an RRP. You already know our water concerns. On page 246, it states that there will be wildlife endangered and that you would have to provide a habitat plan. It also states that thistle growth on the property is deterring wildlife from occupying that land. I guess that's why when we asked over and over again, the thistles were not removed. And also, are you going to have the same issues that you're having with the realignment project because of these species? On page 219, policy 3, it states that modifications to John Smith Road will be funded by the proposed RRP. That's the first time we've ever heard that. Supervisor Rivas asked us how this zone change and proposed RRP would affect us personally. This will affect me, my family, and future generations of my family's quality of life, safety, health, and welfare. We have lived on our family's ranch, which is, by the way, not across the fence, but a mile down the road, for 6 generations. We have tried to be good stewards of the land and to pass it on to the generations that will follow. We hope that our grandchildren and great-grandchildren will be able to enjoy this type of lifestyle with clean air, water, and a rural landscape, free of noise and traffic pollutions in an agricultural setting. We're losing agricultural land to development quickly. Do we want this project to add to that loss? Please vote no on the change of the zoning, or I ask for a continuance so that everybody really has studied and read every single thing that this project is going to mean to all of us. Thank you.
My name is Bob DeGeorge, and I live at 845 Heatherwood Estates Drive with a wonderful view of the proposed resource recovery park and the current landfill. It is only a zone change, so we are told. So what is the difference? The difference is that this zone change opens a door that sets the stage for a fundamental change in this county. For years, you have heard from the citizens of this county why this project is wrong for the area, flies in the face of everything that is written about how such a project should be designed, and just plain makes no sense. Yet here we are, on the verge of moving forward with something that is ill-conceived, unworkable, a public health and safety threat, and an unwanted and unneeded drain of taxpayer money. You may be able to justify your actions by claiming that it is just a zone change vote, but it is irresponsible to parse this issue in that manner. It is your responsibility to look not just at the vote on the zone change, but to look through that door at the future this zone change will bring. In all the years and all of the meetings, I have never heard one person other than staff, speak in favor of this project. In all the years, I have never heard a compelling argument for going forward with this project. In fact, each meeting brings new arguments against this project, such as the new concern we heard about today about the high-pressure PG&E gas line running under John Smith Road. I am not going to stand here and read the list of questions and objections. You all know what they are. Besides, the list is too long, and Supervisor Munzer would just gavel me down before I was halfway through with it. What I am asking of you is to not take the easy way out. Don't hide behind this disingenuous argument that this is just a zone change and we change zones all the time.
Have the courage to look through that door. Have the courage to see the real problems of this project for what they are. Have the courage to vote with the people of San Benito County, not against them. Vote no on this change. Thank you.
Okay. One last time, is there anybody in the audience that would like to address this board before I close the public hearing? If you can fill out a speaker card after you speak.
I'm Shauna McKenzie. I live Carroll Court in Ridgemark. And I've listened to, I haven't spoken, but I've listened to everybody for years. And we're coming out of a really bad recession. Moving forward, things are getting better. I could see years ago, maybe we needed this for an income. We don't now. We are now the gateway to the pinnacles. Do you want everybody that comes in here to see the waste, the trucks, the people? We have something to build on now. We need to be passionate about that, not this. We can make this a Carmel, or even better, if we choose. We have this many people that are passionate. Why not turn it around so they can help us build on what we really need here? We don't need this, obviously. There's nothing good about it. Let's move forward and make this place what it can be, the gateway to the pinnacles. King City is building on that. We're not. We're throwing it away. We are a destination. People come here for more. It's beautiful. We have the wineries. We have the pinnacles. We have San Juan Bautista. We have the ocean. We have everything to make this a beautiful destination. Please don't take that away. Thank you.
Okay. If you would come forward. And if you two will fill out a speaker
I'll fill
card
it out
afterwards.
after. I just wanted to ask for a continuance. My husband has contacted PG&E. There is a big concern about the pipeline that's running across John Smith Road. They are investigating it, and they are supposed to be getting back to him this week. That's all I have to say. Sure. Okay. Oh, Lori Amlin, 770 Heatherwood Estates Drive.
Thank you. Seeing no one else, I will close the public hearing. Okay. What is the wishes of the board? Do we have any questions of staff or any comments we want to make?
Mr. Chair, there has been a request to continue this, and if we choose to do that, because there have been a lot of questions asked, I'm hoping that staff is taking notes, as I did at our meeting at the church hall. And instead of me going through them and saying, okay, these are the answers to those questions, that we actually print those in some form and have them available to the public so that they can review them. So I would recommend that if we decide to continue this hearing.
Okay, is that your recommendation, that we continue the hearing to a date
Well,
certain?
there are so many questions, and I myself have, because of this presentation, have a couple more, and I'll just throw them out there so that maybe that can be a part of the list. The percentage of waste that could come from the John Smith landfill that will be going to the Resource Recovery Park, do we have any number there? Can we say, 50% of what is going or will be coming to John Smith Road in the future? Because we are growing, we are going to have new communities, we are going to add population. Will that percentage grow, and what might that percentage be? That's my own question. My other question is this. John Smith landfill is going to be our landfill once we fill up the one on the north side. What will be the zoning change on that? Will we be making application? I'm assuming that it's all those 100 acres are all agriculture. Will we be making a zone change at the time that it may be 10 years, 15, 20 years, whatever that may be? Are we going to be requesting a zone change at that point too? And what is the zoning, and I should know this, but I don't, for the current landfill? So those are my questions that I would, oh, and the other thing is that it is a valid question and concern from the community that we do show what is the potential in the way of cost, return, investment. That is important. And I don't think it's something that we cannot come up with. I think we can come up with those answers, and we may already have them. We just have not publicized them. So I think that that's important that we inform. So, and I know that it's been said, why make a zoning change when you don't have a project? But we do have a plan. The plan has been studied. It has been in place since 2007. Moving forward, we may not have a project, but we have a plan that addresses specific projects with specific wording for those projects. So just wanted to make sure that I threw that out there. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anyone? Supervisor Patello?
Okay. Yeah, I think we should allow the staff to answer a couple of the questions that Supervisor Barrios had. And I also would like to hear from staff as far as some of the interests that the potential businesses that would like to take a look at this property after this zone change is complete. I know the Planning Commission has heard some of that information. We've gotten a couple of letters of interest if this takes place, and I think that helps this board go forward with this. And I'm going to be straight up front. I'm very much in favor of this project, and I know that's not what you want to hear, but you know, I took a big part of this about 7 years ago on a committee, the Integrated Waste Committee, and the logic that we had at the time, we saw this recession coming. We also had a need for jobs. We as Director Turner stated, we have a shortage of industrial zone land. We needed revenue for the county and for the landfill, as the meetings that were taking place was the expansion of the cells that waste goes in, and the state requirements that persist today makes that effort very, very costly. And you know, Supervisor Lowe and myself, meetings with Director Rose, kicked around the idea of creating a zoning that would increase revenue to integrated waste and possibly to the rest of the county while providing jobs for this community, which is always a challenge. And that's where we decided to move forward, bring it to the board to see if we develop a resource recovery park or a special zoning that's compatible with the landfill and diversion of waste. And so this is where started the process. I want to thank the staff for their diligence and the Planning Commission for trying to be as open and answer all the questions and concerns that you folks have in that area. And I feel that the work they've done has been very thorough. Sitting on this board, I understand your fear. We do, as a county, we own that landfill. It is a landfill. If we don't do this 30 acres of zone change and a diversion park, it's still a landfill, and ultimately it will go across and to the other part of the property as a landfill. Noise, dust, all the issues that go along with it. That landfill was there a lot longer than some of you folks have been there. And you know, we certainly feel, or at least I feel, that it doesn't have to be an intrusive, operation. I think, if there's a business that applied tomorrow, if this goes through, I don't know if it is or not. I really don't know. But if it did, and a business would have to come back in for, again, a review under CEQA, any impacts on roads, water, other resources, quality of life in the area need to be addressed and answered. And I, for one, would not support a business that I feel that would be a bad neighbor or cause a public safety issue or a degradation of quality of life. Talking about zoning, we have businesses all over this county. Seed research businesses, huge, huge packing facilities that may or may not affect neighbors. And it's our job, our Planning Commission's job, our staff's job to try to review those projects and make it the least impact as possible. In our general plan, we're looking to add zoning, whether it's highway commercial, industrial. What comes to mind, I see Jim West here, Aromas, industrial zoning there, within a mile of a population. I could have a room full of people here opposed to that. It's interesting that there's a few of you folks out there I know personally. This is hard for me to state and take this position because of that, but we talk about jobs and what we don't have in this county, and what are you doing about it? Well, this was an idea that came about 7 years ago. It took us 7 years to get here, and we're not there yet. We still probably have to take applications and review it again, and it'll be another couple of years before something ever gets built and there's one job. There's something wrong with the system, and I truly do believe that this is not, in respect, a very large zone change. It's 30 acres. There's call it whatever you want. It's not an agricultural operation. It's a landfill. It's an industrial use on that same property. And I think this is a better opportunity for that area than the contrary. It's an opportunity for this county for economic development, waste diversion, and certainly revenue for this community. So I really will commit to you to this. I'm going to support this project, but I'm also going to, as businesses express interest, support only those that is compatible with that area. And that's where I'm at.
Supervisor Rivas.
All right, I do have a few comments. I'm probably going to be a little over the board because, I would like to hear staff answer these questions. We have received a number of letters and emails that specifically question, which is number one on my list, is specific uses of the RRP zone. I think that's a concern. I think which was just mentioned is, I don't think that it's in our interest, should the zone change move forward, to approve any type of use out there that's going to be a detriment to the quality of life. No question. The second issue in the emails and the correspondence I received was about location, location, location. I know a lot of these questions, whether you agree with me or not, have probably already been answered. Yeah. Whether you like the information and the answers to those questions is something entirely that's different, right? But when I read the EIR, you know, there was a section in there that touched on the location and why that location was selected. So maybe if staff can highlight some of that. And then clearly the impacts to the quality of life, you know, infrastructure, the road. You know, if I know, Steve, you have addressed it numerous times. You're probably going to be asked to do it again today. And something that was new to me in recent correspondence was the potential for groundwater the contamination, which is what I suspect would be from some specific uses that would be located at the Resource Recovery Park. But I can tell you that I'm not in favor of a continuance. I think that this has been going on for quite some time. I think that staff has worked hard. They've done their part to reach out to the community. I would really like to vote this project up or down right now and this morning. That is my goal. You know, and I'm confused. I think Marty, he brought up an excellent point. You know, when he was speaking, the first thing that crossed my mind was Obamacare. How you hear a lot about Obamacare. They did a really bad, the White House did a terrible job in talking about the benefits of Obamacare. I still don't know what they are. I'm sure a lot of us don't. I think that could be the same about this project. You know, maybe there are, there is some benefit to our county and our community, but what that is, I think that we all are a little skeptical of what that could be. But at the same time, you know, I heard some conflicting some messages up there. You know, let's not create a RRP zone. Let's use the land for what it, was intended to be, land for landfill expansion. I don't want landfill expansion because the next thing we're going to become the dumping grounds of the Bay Area. We already are. You know, I mean, are we going to encourage that even more? Absolutely, if that becomes a landfill expansion. You know, but I also heard things like, we can be Carmel. I don't want to be Carmel. If I want to be in Carmel, I'll move to Carmel. This is San Benito County. You know, I think that we're unique to ourselves. I don't mean to insult anybody, but this shouldn't be Carmel. Absolutely not. We're much different than Carmel. The other thing I heard was, it was mentioned that this board has a history of making some decisions based on listening to local residents, and the examples that were cited were the proposed Hotel in Tres Pinos and the proposed the Pinnacles National Highway name change. And in my opinion, those are two poor examples because those are two decisions that didn't make a lot of sense. It didn't make a lot of sense to eliminate a hotel when we're struggling for tax dollars. When we talk so much about tourism and wine industry, and, when we look, there's not very many places to stay in San Benito County. The second thing is also the name change. I didn't agree with the name change either because at the same time, we want to promote, the Pinnacles. And sure, the name change was a minor little thing, but it was a step, in my opinion, in the right direction. So I thought that those were some poor examples, for my opinion. But with that, I am interested in listening to staff. I do appreciate all the emails and the town hall that was well attended last week. I thought it was encouraging to see all the residents out there. But with that, I won't support a continuance. I want to vote this measure up or down. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to thank the group for allowing Supervisor Rivas and myself to attend. It was very educational, and thank you for all the emails that I got from all you guys. Actually, I did respond back to you guys, and if I didn't respond to some of you guys, maybe I just didn't have the time to respond, but I did analyze a lot of the questions and did do some research on them. Some of the questions that I do have, and they've probably been addressed and over and over, I guess, and some of the members talked about, in fact, I think Frank talked about it, was the where is the material coming from for that resource recovery center? Is it material that's going to come from somewhere else, come into that area, and then the leftover or the byproduct of that material, is that going to the landfill? That's some of the questions. That's one question that I have, because the goal, reading Chapter 2 project description on the objectives on Title 2, it mentioned about meeting the requirements of AB 939 and AB 341, which brings it out to 40% reduction of waste that mechanism itself, I believe, is not going to meet that requirement, because anything that comes out of San Bernardino County, that's coming out of San Bernardino County into the landfill, will most likely be garbage. And a lot of these companies, I mean, unless there's a new technology, and I guess that's why, you know, we should be open to it, a new technology might create some valuable material or some valuable state with garbage. But at the time being right now, I don't see enough garbage being produced at the landfill that can entice companies to go down there and build manufacturing. What I think it's a good idea, and I don't think it's a cost benefit for a lot of these companies, is to bring their garbage raw and allow the sorting, the separation at our local landfill. If a lot of these companies can do that, then we're talking a different ballgame. We're talking let's talk, because I can see the benefits in the county benefiting from that. But I honestly believe that a lot of this garbage will actually be garbage that'll be coming to San Bernardino County. And so one of my concerns is, where are we going to find the material to entice companies to build an operation there? And the second part is I know we need to address and I know we talked about it, and that is the improvements of the John Smith Road. Where is that money coming from? Because if that money's coming out of the, the arguments say it could be out of the general fund, it can be out of the reserves accounts, out of the landfill, but eventually any funds that are going to come back to the county have to go to the general fund and then be allocated to capital projects improvement. So that's a concern that I have that needs to be addressed, that I want to be addressed before I can vote on this issue. And yes, and it is true, sometimes government does have a different way how to go about it. We are the lead agency on this. We are the ones who submitted the application, and there are some exemptions, absolutely. That's why, sometimes government can be our good friend, or it can be our bad friend, depending on the issue. And then what benefits would it provide to the community? Real, actual benefits to the community. The quality issues, I really do have some of those concerns on them. And there was a member of the community actually threw an email through one of the meetings about the feasibility report study that was done back in 2007. I'm kind of wrestling with that. I don't know if we should be able to do it again. I don't know, but there might actually be some benefits, because the gentleman did respond back to my email when I asked him that question, and he did have some points, and I'm wrestling with that. So Supervisor Rios could be correct. If the staff can entertain those questions today, unfortunately, we're going to go into closed session at 11 o'clock. We might have to push it back and address it that way. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. I know I was contacted by members of the community that could not attend a daytime meeting and requested that this would be dealt with in the evening. So I guess before us right now is, and I'll poll my colleagues to see if we want to continue this to a date certain, and whether we want to do it in the evening. I don't believe we can finish it now before the time constraints of the closed session. So I guess I will poll my colleague to see if you want to continue it to a date certain and have some of these questions answered by staff. Supervisor Botello?
Yes, I understand. I almost share the same opinion as Supervisor Rivas on this one, but I think it's important that we give all the public an opportunity to address the board, and would support a continuance.
I would as well, Mr. Chair. I think in fairness to them, and because we don't have the time, it would be important that we have another meeting. I do have a couple more questions that I would like to throw out there, but I will go ahead and give those to Mandy directly. I will call her or send her an email so that those can be added to the list of answers that we need to get. Thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Rivas, you stated your opinion, but I'll let you state it for the record.
Yeah. For the record, I think that we need to make a decision. This has been, this is years in the making, and a week or what, I don't think it's necessary, and it's unfortunate, but yeah, thanks.
Supervisor De La Cruz?
Mr. Chair, is there any way we can facilitate a memo in which the questions that we raised and some of the questions that the members of the public raised, to allow staff to address them and then relay those responses back to the community, back to the staff, and before the next meeting that we have. So then everybody has read it. There's ample times people have read it, digest it, analyze it, and then either they're satisfied or they're not. But at least some of those questions have been answered before we reconvene again to discuss how we're going to vote on the project.
I would turn to
Right.
county council. Do we have the legal ability to do that? And do we have the mechanism to make sure that those are disseminated to all the members of the public that would want to have them?
Well, certainly if the board wants to have staff prepare a memo or that answers certain questions that were raised today, we can do that. We can also do that for public consumption. I'm not quite sure how it would be dispersed to the public, but I'm sure Ms. Rose would have a better idea of that, and the people in the audience can contact her. So if that's the board's desire, we can.
I mean, Mr. Chair, we can leave a copy out there, and if people can call the office, provide us with their email, we can send it to them.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Just one technicality, Mr. Chair. If the board is inclined to continue this meeting, the county doesn't want to have to republish the public notice in the paper. So you need to reopen the public hearing, which you've closed already. So just, all you need to do is just reopen it, and then once reopened, then continue the public hearing and the meeting to whatever date you want to do it, if the board decides.
Okay. Okay. So with that, if it works for the board, I would suggest we reconvene the public hearing on Tuesday, the 11th, after our board retreat. Does that work for everybody at 7 o'clock?
In the evening on the
Yes.
11th, yeah. Let me look at my calendar. Works for me, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
At 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock. Because what I was hearing, that there were people that had trouble making it to the forums at Trespinas at 6:30 because they were just barely getting back into town from their jobs. So with that, I am going to reopen the public hearing, and then we can continue it to February the 11th at 7 p.m.
You need a motion and a vote.
Okay.
I will go ahead and make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we continue this public hearing to a time and date certain of February the 11th at 7 p.m. here at the Chambers.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Passes 4-1. With that, I want to thank the audience, and I especially want to thank your respecting the process and just your cordial.
And I'd like to add, if anybody in the audience wants to receive a notice, or if whatever the correspondence is issued, please contact Ms. Rose or the CAO with your email address or your mailing address so we can provide you with a copy. What? Yeah, that's right. It'll also, the report will also be distributed with the agenda packet, but that agenda may not go out till right before.
Yes. County Council, if you will report out on the closed session?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Board of Supervisors will now adjourn into closed session to discuss agenda item number 13 on today's agenda. The board will meet and confer with its labor negotiators. The designated agency representatives are Dania Torres-Wong, Ray Espinoza, Joe Paul Gonzalez, Melinda Casillas, Mark Gregerson, Georgia Cochran, and Captain Don Bradley and Sheriff Darren Thompson will be attending today. The employee organizations involved are the Institutions Association, Law Enforcement Management, Deputy Sheriff's Association, Management Employees Group, SEIU Local 521, the General Unit Employees, SEIU United Long-Term Care Workers Local 6434. The authority to meet in this closed session can be found in California Government Code Section 54957.6.
Comment on closed session.
Can you clear the room?
Okay.
Mr. Chair, we have comments.
Yes, if we can clear the room, we are still conducting the meeting.
Are you on?
No. Okay, yeah.
She's
Okay.
He's trying to get organized. Trying to get the cats. Herd the cats.
I'm sorry, we need,
Do you have an answer?
the meeting is still going on. If you have any discussion, it needs to be taken out of the room. I will open this up to any public comment now on the closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Marty Richmond from Hollister. I'd like to make a brief public comment on the items on the closed session. In spite of the fact that there's a lot of heat and there's a lot of light involved, maybe more heat than light, I encourage both the county and their employees to try and come to a settlement of their disagreements that understands the difficulties that the employees have and also recognizes the county's difficulties, extraordinary difficulties in raising revenue because of their unique situation in how our county demographics are placed and where the businesses are and the issues with the state codes concerning tax capabilities and splitting taxes. We've discussed this before, and I've been knocked down several times. I've still gotten up. So I would hope that the county understands employees are squeezed, just like everybody else, for spendable income, and I hope the employees understand the extraordinary financial difficulties that this county is in. The city has been able to, because they have not had the commitment to lifetime medical care that the county has, and I bring it up all the time, has been able to do basically offer a better deal on health care. They don't have to charge their employees as much, and that's the difference. That is the difference. That $1,200 per person, per head, for retirees, who equal now more than 35% of the workforce. Workers who are not on the job, they are gone, they're retired, and we're paying their health care. So I do not say that with acrimony. I don't want anybody left out in the cold. I have my own health care problems like everybody else. So, but I do hope that they can come to an agreement that respects both sides and acknowledges what the difficulties are. And thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Marty. Anyone else would like to address this item? Seeing none, I just want to, I believe Ray was figuring this was going to take at least an hour. Okay, so what, I think the plan of action would be that we'll break for lunch after we're done with closed session, and then we'll reconvene at 1:30. And I apologize to our other agencies that sat through this all morning.
Oh, see, he's okay.
But we'll reconvene at 1:30.
Can we move that to the 18th, Jerry? Because I've got some commitments this afternoon that the situation's not going to change that much between now and the 18th. Actually, I may have more information for you by the 18th.
You know, I think that'll be fine, Jeff. Okay, we'll move item 14 to the 18th then.
Well, shoot, let's just address 15 right now there, Mr. Chair, if it's going to take like 2 minutes.
15 has been continued.
But 15 is still on the board.
Oh, 16, not 15?
Yeah.
Oh, got
Yeah,
it.
so if it's a...
Well, we have.
Oh, Joe's not here, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. We'll do it the 18th. All right. Thank you, Jeff. All right. Wait.
Second?
Okay. Oh, okay. So we have a motion and a second to move item 14 to the 18th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? One absent.
missed it all, Anthony.
I did? Oh,
Yeah.
darn it, I just...
You were
reinstated in his chair.
Everybody got raises?
You did a good job, Jeff.
So